into that bomb shelter. But we're talking about extremely serious missiles here, ballistic missiles, and a direct hit is very difficult scene there in Beit Shemesh. And so, man, where are you right now? And what can you tell me, about the mood across the country? Because just, in the first day of the war, we hadn't really seen any missile impacts. People were very optimistic. Now we're starting to see the death toll rise. We're starting to see these missiles get through. So what is the mood across the country right now?
So, people are feeling very proud of the IDF, very proud of the United States and Israeli coordination, and feeling confident in terms of the impact of the war on Iran. But people are nervous. I spent today in Tel Aviv. I'm here today standing in Jerusalem, near the Jerusalem hills and some of the villages. Normally, you would see in these communities, the roads fill at this time of night. It's pretty early. It's still light outside, but you'll see a car here and there run by, maybe a runner or a biker. But by and large, people are staying home and near shelters so as not to put themselves at risk. Because as you mentioned, these ballistic missiles are huge. The warheads are much longer than what you would have seen in the past from Hezbollah or from Hamas. And the impact is incredibly dangerous. Prime Minister Netanyahu was just before visiting the impact site in Beit Shemesh, and looking at what had happened there with the synagogue. And he said that he envisions this war continuing to go on. He called on Israelis to be strong. He said he does believe that the citizens of Iran will soon take to the streets and there will be an overthrow of the regime. But he was really calling on Israelis to understand that they have to continue with the resilience we've seen for the last 2.5 years already of war. Remember, this war did not start a couple days ago, but 2.5 years ago when Hamas infiltrated Israel. And really, the war we're seeing in Iran is just a continuation of that seven front war. And he's calling on Israelis to hold tight a little longer because there is so much more to do.
Absolutely. And the Israeli home front has so far shown remarkable resilience. People, for the most part, adhering to the home front command guidelines, staying near their bomb shelters. What directives has the home front command issued at this stage, especially since we know that tonight is Purim, where people would usually go to synagogue, would go to parties? I mean, what directives has the home front command issued specifically in terms of Purim?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it is the Purim holiday, and this is a holiday where people dress up, go to parties, and really have a lot of joy. But in fact, we are not allowed to gather. The home front command has asked for no large gatherings. You really need to stay hunkered down near your home with your nuclear or even a little bit maybe extended family, but really to stay close to home and in small gatherings. So people are not going to be out on the street. Also, remember, the home front command has said that you need to be within, distance of a bomb shelter. And so you can't go to any of the big outdoor venues where you would normally see celebrations in Tel Aviv, on the beach or open air clubs. None of that is going to be happening this year. The home front command has said that we need to stick with the original protocols, which are to stay near a shelter, not to open any businesses, any schools, any gatherings, and when you hear that siren, to go immediately into the shelter.
Absolutely. Maayan Hoffman, thank you so much for your report and for your reports throughout the day, and continue to stay safe out there.
Thank you.
And indeed, ballistic missiles being fired from the Islamic Republic of Iran, a far cry from the rockets of Hamas and even Hezbollah that Israelis have been used to over the past several years. And on the other hand, we are seeing incredible defensive capabilities from the IDF, including the use of the iron laser beam for the very first time. And so joining us now with more on the defensive capabilities and the ballistic missiles coming from Iran is Tal Inbal, Senior Research Fellow at the Missile Defense Advocacy Alliance and an expert on Iran's missile program. Tal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've seen thousands of bombs being dropped on regime targets in Iran by the United States and Israel, and yet the Iranians still have the capabilities to fire missiles at Israel and, of course, other countries throughout the region. So I want to ask you, what is the state of their missile program today, 3 days into this war?
Well, we can see that Iran is continuing to fire, launch ballistic missiles, not only against Israel, but on its neighbors like the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. So they have a lot of missiles in their inventory at the moment, but they are experiencing a lot of trouble to try to orchestrate a large barrage of missiles. So we see some sporadic fire from different locations within Iran in an attempt to let's say challenge the defensive capabilities of Israel and other countries in the region. And it is logical to assume that they still have the capability of launching missiles for days, even more, but not in large quantities like we saw in June 2025. And we just get an alert here.
I heard the
So,
sound. Oh, so did we. If you can hear
yeah,
that glaring,
yeah.
that sound that is simply unmistakable. So we're going to continue with the broadcast. We're going to see until we actually hear the siren. Tal, do you need to evacuate
No,
to
no,
the
no, no.
shelter?
I'm
Okay,
I'm
so
now
let's.
in a basement, so we can go
Okay,
on.
great. So we'll continue with you. So please continue your thoughts.
Sure. So it is just logical to assume that Iran will maintain its capabilities, but Israel and the US are degrading their quantities on a not on a daily basis, on a regular basis by the hour. But still, Iran could pose a threat to us and to the region.
And can you talk a little bit about the kinds of missiles that we're seeing the Iranians use? Because I understand also that for the first time last night, they used a new type of missile, or that's sort of the rumor circulating here. It hasn't been officially confirmed, but what can you tell us about sort of the missiles that they are using? Because these aren't the usual missiles that we're seeing from Hamas and from Hezbollah.
Well, of course, Iran has its own arsenal of long-range ballistic missiles, which Hezbollah and Hamas does not. Speaking about the types of the missiles, those are all the regular types that we saw in June 2025, and even some of them we saw before. And speaking about the submunitions that we saw the videos from Israel last night, I was personally able to see it from my house, and there was no siren at the time, so it was safe to be outside. This is not the first time. We saw in June 2025 submunitions from an Iranian missile dispersed over a wide area in central Israel. So it is less dangerous, of course, from if you compare it to several hundred kilograms of explosives in a single unitary warhead of a ballistic missiles. Nevertheless, it poses dangers because those small, like this size or something like that, small bomblets could be placed over a wide area. But this is not the first time. It was the first time that many people were able to take some footage of this missile, and no new types of missiles. And we saw from Israeli Air Force and from Central Command from the United States, we saw a footage of a Horam-Shar missile, which is the heaviest missile that we know of, being destroyed on its mobile launcher, one today, two yesterday. So no surprises in terms of the types Iran is using at the moment.
So how were the Iranians, though, able to restock so quickly, to rebuild so quickly after the war in June? Because we know that during that war, Israel specifically targeted many of its ballistic missile capabilities. So how were they able to rebuild so quickly?
Well, we have to remember that Iran built a huge stockpile of ballistic missiles, and many of the underground facilities that were attacked by Israel, for example, there was a damage to the entry and exit of those facilities, but many missiles were remain intact underground. So we know that Iran had a lot of missiles after June 2025, and they increased the rate of production of ballistic missiles ever since. So it was mentioned that they have an inventory of roughly 2,000 missiles with the capabilities of reaching Israel or something like that. So this is a lot, and if they will use them, let's say, on a modest pace of fire, they could remain at threat for weeks.
At war for weeks. And I do also want to ask you on the flip side about Israel's defensive capabilities. We saw last night Israel's laser beam in action in the north. How is this defense system going to change Israel's defense capabilities, if at all?
Well, to my sorrow, it was not a laser beam. It was misinterpreted by some reporters here and some from the wider audience on social media. So we didn't see actual use of laser
So
beam,
what we're seeing
IRGC.
now on the
This is
screen is not the laser
this is
beam.
it is not, to my sorrow, but
Hmm.
nevertheless, the laser is effective against some UAVs, and in the future we will see it going into action, hopefully soon.
Yes, absolutely, because it was widely circulated here, and we've seen it all over in news reports, and we've been reporting as well that this was, in fact, the laser beam. But it's excellent that you've clarified this now. I think that's a very important clarification. So we have not, in fact, seen Israel's latest technology. So a very important clarification there. All right. Well, we are going to have to evacuate to the bomb shelter soon, I think. So, Tal, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your insights into Iran's ballistic missile program. Thank you so much.
Stay safe.
And meanwhile, Iranian missiles and drones continue targeting U.S. military assets in the region, including attempted strikes on American bases and naval forces in the Gulf. The Raf Al Khtori British Air Base in Cyprus was hit by a suspected Iranian-made drone strike around midnight, causing minor damage but no casualties. British defense officials confirmed. Base personnel were ordered to shelter in place and security threats were declared. Iran has also fired missiles through Iraqi and Syrian airspace, with some projectiles intercepted over those countries, raising concerns about regional sovereignty and further escalation. In addition, Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria have threatened and in some cases attempted rocket and drone attacks on U.S. positions, though the scale has been more limited than during previous rounds of conflict. Iran has issued warnings about shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, and there have been reports of heightened Iranian naval activity, though no confirmed large-scale seizures have yet been reported. The United Arab Emirates says it is closing its embassy in Tehran and recalling its ambassador and all other diplomats in response to the blatant Iranian missile attacks that targeted the UAE's territory. The UAE, along with Israel, has gotten hundreds of missile barrages from Iran, resulting in 3 people being killed and 58 others injured in the UAE since Iran began its retaliatory campaign in the Gulf in response to U.S. and to Israeli attacks. This according to Emirati authorities. And we also know that Iran has struck out at Kuwait, at Qatar, at Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain. And joining us now with more on the joint operation with the U.S. and Israel are Dr. Jacques Neria, special analyst for the Middle East at the JFCA, and Dr. Mordechai Kedar, Middle East expert from Bar Ilan University, who I see has not connected with us yet. So, Dr. Neria, I want to first ask you what you make of Hezbollah joining this war. I mean, was that something that was obvious, to you and to other security experts that they were going to join this war, or was there a bit of a question as to whether they would risk dragging Lebanon into this war?
The only question that we had was timing. I mean, whoever follows Hezbollah knows very well that Hezbollah, first of all, is not a Lebanese organization, not a Lebanese militia. It is a foreign Iranian militia founded by Iranians, and it speaks Lebanese, but in fact, it receives its orders, instructions, money, finance, and command from Iran. So already 2 months ago, there was this visit of IRGC, Iran's foreign minister, to Lebanon, and it seems that at that point there was an agreement between the two that if something happens in Iran, meaning a confrontation between Iran, Israel, and the United States, Hezbollah will intervene. I mean, its intervention, it could not be as a front of support as it was with Gaza. It had to be something else. And this something else was trying to fire, the firing of four rockets towards Israel. And in fact, it was falling into a trap that Israel was waiting for that for a long time. And I mean, head on, Hezbollah went into this trap, and this is where what he deserves, and this is what's happening today.
And Dr. Mordechai Kedar, I see that you've joined us as well. I do want to ask you, we're seeing Iran firing missiles in every which direction at Israel, at Gulf countries, and even at Cyprus. Is this the act of a dying regime?
Definitely. There's something which, like Samson said, "Tamot nafshi im plishtim," let my soul die with the Philistines. We have a siren here. I have to leave. I'll get back to you.
I have to stop you for 1 second because we are now hearing sirens, and we have to make our way into the bomb shelter, but we're going to keep this interview going. So stay with us. And, Dr. Kedar. All right. Well, I don't know if you can see me or hear me. Hopefully you can, but we are now making our way into the bomb shelter here at ILTV Studios, the entire team with us today. We've just received sirens here in the studios.
Hello.
And so we are all on our way into the bomb shelter, into the safe room. We're going to try and continue our broadcast live from here. And I hope that our guests are still with us. We're going to see in just a second as we get situated here in the bomb shelter. These are unusual circumstances, wartime, and so we are just getting situated right now here in the bomb shelter. As we have sirens I've lost count how many times now, but we are getting set up, and hopefully our guests are also in bomb shelters. And we're going to continue with this broadcast live from the bomb shelter here in Israel. So, Dr. Mordechai Kedar, are you still with us? All right, well, we seem to have lost our guests at this moment, but we will continue broadcasting live. We've just received, I think as you heard on our live broadcast, we received the first initial siren from Home Command indicating that they detected a missile launch coming from the Islamic regime in Iran. And that gives us about 10 minutes of warning notice. And then, of course, we had the sirens that we've just heard indicating that we have about 1.5 minutes to make our way into a bomb shelter. This is why it's so crucial to adhere to home front command guidelines and to ensure that you're within safe distance to a bomb shelter. So we've made our way into the bomb shelter now. We've put together this impromptu broadcast just to keep our live broadcast going. And we're going to see if our guests can reconnect with us soon. We were speaking about the Iranian regime, of course, and its attacks on not just Israel, but on Gulf countries and on Cyprus, the British base in Cyprus for the first time. So, Dr. Kedar, are you with us? No, so I'm being told that our guests have also had to disconnect. We're going to wait and see if they can reconnect soon. And in the meantime, we're going to try and work on getting some more guests on this live broadcast. But in the meantime, I do want to give you just a little feel for what it's like here in Israel. So we've had sirens throughout since Saturday morning, essentially throughout the day and throughout the night. The idea being, of course, to try and wear out the Israeli home front. But Israelis here have shown remarkable resilience despite the rising death toll, despite the missile barrages that we're seeing. Israelis have remained very steadfast because they understand that this is an historic moment. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has spoken directly to the Israeli people and has asked them to stay strong, has asked them to understand the significance, this historic moment. And of course, today, as we are set to mark the holiday of Purim, a holiday that essentially marks Jewish resilience against the Persian regime. And so it's very, very apt that this war against the Islamic Republic, which some are calling the ultimate final battle, is taking place on Purim. And so we are waiting for our guests to reconnect. And for those just joining, we are broadcasting live from the bomb shelter here at ILTV. We've been receiving missile alerts throughout the night, throughout the day. This is what we call part of the wartime routine here in Israel. All right, and I understand that Dr. Kedar has reconnected. Dr. Kedar, can you hear me?
Hi, Lidar. Yes, I can hear you. I'm in the building shelter. Look at this.
You're also in the bomb shelter. Yes, we're also here in the bomb shelter. This is, like I was just telling our viewers, the war routine. We go about our lives, but in the vicinity of a bomb shelter. So they're getting a little bit of a taste of what it's like right now.
Let's give it a try.
Yeah. And Dr. Kedar, so I do want to go back to what we were discussing, which is the Iranian regime and its retaliatory attacks, not just against Israel, but at other Gulf states here in the region, and of course, against the UK's base in Cyprus, which I think is the first time that they've actually managed to strike there. So what's the rationale here? I mean, why is the regime striking across the region?
The rationale of the regime is the tamot nafshi im plishtim. What Samson said, let my soul die with all the Philistines. They say, means the mullah says, if we are not existing, nobody will continue to exist. We will burn everybody. We will bring the hell up to everybody. If you don't leave us, we will not leave you. This is some kind of a tantrum, like a child who is acting irrationally, especially when somebody takes something from him. And this is exactly what this is. They are, even according to their rationale, they are irrational today. They are acting from their emotions, not from the brains. Because according to the brains, they should have do something with Trump in order to survive as a regime. Now, they might go to hell, means the people in the street, when Trump will tell them, straight to the streets, that they will run with knives in order to slaughter the mullahs. This is what's going to be there. It's going to be a big bloodshed. Everyone who was identified with the regime will be slaughtered, literally, factually. And this is what happens when people are, let's say, in pressure so long time, so much time, 47 years, people are oppressed. 47 years, people are chased. 47 years, people are hung up from cranes in the streets. And now comes the time of revenge. And the revenge will be very bloody. And they know it. That's why they try to.
I seem to have lost Dr. Kedar.
Sure.
Dr. Kedar, can you hear me?
Drones which were launched to the Emirates is, I don't know, thousands. And drones are lethal. Just look at them. American soldiers who got killed because of a drone. So here we are. The Emirates are the friends of Israel. This is why they are suffering today. Saudi
Bearing the
Arabia
brunt
works
of
with
the
Israel.
attacks.
All these countries which collaborate with the state now are suffering from the mullahs, the messengers of Allah. This is how they view themselves. This is how they view the neighbors, and let the world go to hell if they lose control over Iran.
Now, there were reports initially that part of the reason that the Islamic regime did not want to give in to negotiations is because they believed that they would actually be able to weather this attack, this operation by the United States and Israel. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you see that as likely?
Sorry to tell you, because of the noise here, I couldn't hear that. Can you repeat the question shortly?
Absolutely. I said that there were reports that the Islamic regime, the leadership, believed that they could weather a strike by the US and Israel. And so this is why they did not give in or capitulate to Trump's demands. And they believe that they can actually withstand, that the regime will survive at the end of the day. I mean, do you share that assessment? How likely is it that this regime could survive this?
Their religious belief says that they are infallible because Allah guides them and Allah directs them, and whatever they do is a deed of Allah. And even if they bomb, let's say, Saudi Arabia or the Emirates, this is what Allah orders them, because Saudis and the Emiratis are Sunnah and they are Shia. And according to their view, they are real Muslims, while the Sunnah are fake Muslims. This is why the wrath of Allah should rest on the Sunnah, and they, the messengers of Allah, are those who are going to execute it for Allah as His messengers. This is how deeply they think. Not only this, they know that once they are being killed or targeted, like Khamenei, they go directly to heaven to enjoy the 72 virgins and whatever goodies are being given to the Shaheed in heaven. They are joining their friends, Hassan Nasrallah, and all the others, especially Ali bin Abi Talib and Hussein bin Ali, and all those victims of the Shia since the 7th century. They are more than sure that this is what's happening, and they are not afraid of death.
All right, Dr. Kedar, we've just received notice that we can leave this bomb shelter, but we're going to continue the interview from here before we move on.
Well, people are now leaving the shelter. People are now leaving the shelter.
Yeah, and, so we're gonna keep
but in
walking.
10 minutes, we're starting the prayer of the evening and the Megillah reading. We are reading the Esther Megillah tonight to commemorate the miracles which the Jews in Persia enjoyed in the 2,500 years ago, when they were redeemed from the order to kill all the Jews by Haman, the wicked guy. I think that this is too much, too close, and too much in common between what was those days and what is in our days, what we see in our eyes, how the wicked Persian is being punished by Allah, by the Kadosh Baruch, by God, in order to redeem the Jews.
This is all happening. How fitting and how apt that this is happening, of course, as we celebrate the holiday of Purim, of course, under the routine of war. But Dr. Mordechai Kedar, I understand that you do have to go to begin the reading. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
And from the bomb shelter for staying with us. All right, so we have made it back into the ILTV studio. We've received the all clear from Homefront Command that we were able to make our way back out of the bomb shelter and back into the ILTV studio here. So we're just getting set up right now, back into the studio. Dr. Kedar, I hope that you can hear me. I just wanted to say once again, thank you so much for joining us, for staying with us in the bomb shelter. I understand that you do need to go to begin reading the Megillah. So happy Purim, even under these circumstances. Thank you.
Good evening. Good night.
Good evening. Good night. And we're back in the studio after being in the bomb shelter and moving on. You know, Israel is under attack. And so now is the time to stand strong together. Iran's assaults are not only against Israel, but against the democratic values we share. In moments of challenge, strength is measured by action. The United States and Israel stand united, bound by freedom, security, and a resilience. And Israel Bonds remains a vital bridge to the Jewish state. Every investment sends a bold, unmistakable message of support. So now is the time to act. You can invest in Israel Bonds at israelbonds.com or by using the QR code. Now, once again, I think is Dr. Nelia Jacques. Are you with us?
Yes, definitely with you.
Okay, so we lost you there. We had to run to the bomb shelter, and I'm assuming you did as well. And before we heard the sirens, we were speaking about Hezbollah joining in this conflict. You know, we've heard also from many of Iran's proxies in the region. The Houthis have said that they're going to join. The Iraqi militias have tried to join, but with little success. What can you tell us about the Iranian proxy network today? We know it's been largely eroded, but what more can you tell us about their capabilities?
Well, let us not forget that Hezbollah has still an arsenal of almost 30,000 rockets and missiles. This is something that we cannot ignore. This is one thing. And then there's this ability to hide inside the civilian houses. You know, the Hezbollah just rent houses and transform them into the depots, into armed depots. And this is why Israel has asked the population, I mean, those who live in 50 villages in southern Lebanon to leave their houses, because otherwise you cannot be able to control what's happening there. This is one thing that Hezbollah has, in fact, rebuilt itself during the past year with the help of the Revolutionary Guards. And money coming and financing coming from Iran, and weapons being illegally transferred through Syria and Iraq. Now, there's this Iraqi militia, the Al-Hashd al-Shabi, the people's mobilization for a sort of name of that sort, which is part of the Iraqi army, and definitely the allegiance is far from us, but they can be the side of launching missiles against Israel. And last but not least, we have the Houthis who are right now preparing themselves for a renewed conflict in the area. So after all, even though the ring that Iran planned to put around Israel in order to suffocate Israel is not exactly working, mainly because of the fall of Bashar Assad. So what remains is Lebanon on the one hand and Yemen on the other hand. Let's forget about Iraq because this is not relevant. So in Lebanon, we are now facing Hezbollah, and Hezbollah, as I said, has fallen in the trap that Israel was waiting for. We've been waiting for that for a long time, and Hezbollah just made us a favor, just beginning firing against Israel territory yesterday night. So we have seen immediately response of Israel and the unraveling of a military plan. And I think that in the coming days, we will see much more of that. And this would be, in a way, the end of the military might of Hezbollah. One thing that is very important, and maybe I could say even dramatic in Lebanon, is somebody speaking at the same time. Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but there's something in the background who's speaking.
I'm not hearing anything over here, but
There's something in
let's
your,
see if there's
studio there.
perhaps
Anyway,
a technical issue.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's continue.
So what I'm saying is the following, that the Lebanese government today made a decision, a dramatic decision, asking forbidding all military activities of Hezbollah in the whole country, and of course transferring its weapons to the Lebanese army. This is dramatic. This is a development that can lead to a clash between Hezbollah and the Lebanese government, the Lebanese establishment. We had such a clash in 2008 when the government tried to stop the Hezbollah from laying a fiber optic system in Lebanon, independent, and as a result, Hezbollah just invaded most of the state institutions, and for 3 days it was the master of Lebanon. So what happens today is, in fact, is of paramount importance, because this might mean that we are going into a clash between the establishment and Hezbollah, and that would lead the country into a sort of civil war. The most important element of it what is going to be with the army. There was already a big fight inside the government today, the government session, between the chief of the army, Haikal, and the prime minister, who finally ordered Haikal, the army chief, to implement the decision made by the government. But this doesn't mean that the Lebanese army is able or capable of implementing this decision, because 60% of its elements are Shiites, and you cannot imagine a moment that Shiites will be employed in order to fight other Shiites in the villages and all around South Lebanon. It means that there's a possibility of fragmentation of the army, and if this is so, then we will be facing a constitutional crisis in Lebanon. But this is what's happening, and the more Israel will be attacking Hezbollah, and the more will be able to release the government from its grip, and enable the government to survive, and maybe in the future to begin negotiation with Israel on a non-belligerency agreement, on a security agreement, and maybe in the far future, something of normalization. This is as far as Lebanon is concerned. As far as the Houthis are concerned,
well, I want to stop for a second
yes.
and continue on the issue of Lebanon. Now, you mentioned 60% of the soldiers in the Lebanese army are actually Shiite, and we know that the Lebanese army was supposed to, according to the treaty drawn up by the United States between Israel and Lebanon, the Lebanese army was supposed to evacuate Hezbollah, to take their weapons from south of the Litani. We know that most of what Lebanon was supposed to do in terms of this ceasefire agreement, this peace treaty, was not implemented, and that Hezbollah has been violating the ceasefire agreement since day one. So can you maybe speak a little bit more about what's happening inside of Lebanon in terms of how the country is divided? I mean, how much of the country is supportive of Hezbollah, especially after the devastation that it brought onto Lebanon, and how much of the country opposes Hezbollah? Do you have an indication of that?
Well, you could say that Hezbollah's base, which is, more or less 35% of the population in Lebanon, well, they identify themselves and they fully with Hezbollah. So you cannot find any Shiite community or sector in Lebanon that is against Hezbollah. So they are definitely pro-Hezbollah. They are definitely pro what they call resistance. They are definitely for keeping Hezbollah armed, and this is their way of reconquering the state. Let me go back a little bit in history. In 1943, there was an agreement, a national pact agreement between Sunnite and Maronites about the division of portfolio of power in Lebanon. This is when the decision was made that the president would be a Maronite, the prime minister would be a Sunnite, the commander of the army a Christian, the deputy commander of the army would be an Orthodox Christian, and so on and so on. And for every six parliament members, you had five Muslims. 6 Christians, 5 Christians, and this lasted for a long time. And during the Civil War, 1975, this formula was exploded, and we found ourselves in 1990 with a different formula, saying basically that in Parliament you have equality between Muslims and Muslims. But this is not enough. What's happening since the Civil War till today? There's a hemorrhage of emigration, mostly Christian from Lebanon. Lebanon has officially 3.5 million people. Its population is 3.5 million. Since 2021 till today, you had an immigration of more than 500,000 Lebanese. Most of them are Christians, which means that the Hezbollah is looking at the situation and say, well, the order that we agreed upon in 1975, 1990 is no more valid. We have to find a new formula where this distribution of power will be different. And of course, to the advantage of the Shiites. This is the core of the problem in Lebanon. Who is going to rule Lebanon? Who is going to govern Lebanon? How long will the Christian last as governing Lebanon? And now we have an idea that we were hearing an idea in Lebanon, that in order to save the minority, the Christian minority in Lebanon, which is 30%, less than 30%, and the Maronites are 16%, they are asking today for a federal system, where federalism or sort of cantons, that every minority or every community will have its own power bases and our power system. This is the core of the discussion of the debate in Israel, in Lebanon today, and this is behind all what's happening in the government and all what's happening in politics. This is basically what, on the one hand, Hezbollah is trying to achieve, on the other hand, what the Christians are trying to save. Now, there's another trend also. Hezbollah, during the Ottoman Empire period, there were lands that were given to the church in Lebanon, and these lands were not registered at the state registrar. And what's happening today is that Hezbollah is taking over those lands. And this is part of the big debate that is going on in Lebanon. It's not only facing Israel. It's facing the Christian superiority, the Christian dominance of the Lebanese politics. This is what we have in Lebanon. This is behind the scene, the real politics that is right now, I would say, trying to stressing the Lebanese and putting them into positions of opposition one to another.
Absolutely. So Lebanon really in a state of chaos, and of course, Iranian terror proxy Hezbollah bringing the country into this conflict, into a direct escalation with Israel. Dr. Jacques Neria, thank you so much for your insight into what is happening inside of Lebanon, and of course, the dramatic news that Hezbollah has officially joined this war. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
First time this war, we've also seen attacks by the Islamic Republic of Iran on Cyprus, on the British base in Cyprus. Joining us now with more on this is Orel Tobelem, Director of Research at the Forum for Foreign Relations. Orel, thank you so much for joining us. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So we hear you as well. So I do want to talk about the significance of this strike by the Islamic Republic on the base, the UK base in Cyprus. We know that Prime Minister Keir Starmer along with many of the other European nations, tried to appease the Islamic Republic of Iran, tried to stay out of this conflict, and yet that didn't prevent the Islamic Republic from trying to strike at British bases in Cyprus. So can you talk maybe a little bit about the significance of this strike on this war and on the UK specifically?
Absolutely. Well, it's important to, of course, take this in the wider context, which is that this is in the context of a regime that does not care about the stability of the region, especially following the elimination of the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. I mean, it has bombed about 11 sovereign states in the region so far, including every single member of the Gulf Cooperation Council. There's pretty much no country in the Middle East or the Near East, for that matter, that is in any way supporting this regime. The Cyprus base is concerning, to say the least. At least the strike on it is concerning, largely because not only does this show an affront, total affront, even to those Western states that did, as you said, everything they could to appease the regime, often suicidally so, but it's also very much in Turkey's jurisdiction, and Turkey is going to be looking to these strikes on Cyprus with some caution and some concern, especially since they share an enormous land border with Iran. It's certainly possible that should there be any Iranian strikes on targets in Turkey, that we might see, more prolonged military incursions from Turkish forces inside Iranian territory, which would change the landscape of the current hostilities entirely. As for what this means for the UK, it's certainly going to be putting more pressure on Keir Starmer to actually move to prescribe the IRGC as a terrorist organization in full in the United Kingdom, something which he has not done so far. He has publicly refused to do so, even though nearly 2 months ago already, his partners in the European Union, some of whom have governments currently that are still to the left of his own, have prescribed the IRGC as a terrorist organization. They've added it to the terror list. And one concern that a lot of the British people are having is that should the UK persist in being the only country in Western Europe that has not prescribed the IRGC as a terrorist organization, we're going to start seeing more of a relocation of all IRGC assets over here to the UK, and that simply is not possible. You would be left in a position where there's more radicalization and more assassination attempts on Iranian dissidents, and that is fundamentally not only wrong but also goes against all the values that we have come to embrace here in the UK.
Absolutely, and I do want to stick to that point a little bit and talk about the IRGC and its prescription as a terrorist organization. The United States, of course, having categorized it as a terrorist organization. The European Union, as you just said, made the move a few months ago. What is the rationale by the Starmer government? Why is the Prime Minister refusing to label what is clearly a terrorist organization as a terrorist organization?
Well, that's the question that a lot of people are asking, and even people within the Labour government are asking it. I mean, you can't really imagine a situation like that where a foreign terrorist military strikes a UK base and the Prime Minister of that country continues to relent on prescribing that organization as a terrorist org. It simply is ridiculous, and yet Keir Starmer's position on the IRGC is almost unchanging. Even as he acknowledges the abhorrent was the word he used, the abhorrent character of a regime that has massacred tens of thousands of its own citizens in the space of 2 months, and more recently launched, as I've said, an unprecedented bombing campaign on civilian areas in surrounding regions. He simply is relenting on this issue, even as hundreds of lawmakers, I believe the number is 115 as of March 2026, hundreds of lawmakers are urging him to do so. Surely, and you know, this is the opinion of many counterterrorism experts, surely the elimination of Ali Khamenei and the very real potential for Iran to retaliate through its sleeper cells and other proxy networks in the West should make it easier and not harder to prescribe the IRGC. I think part of the reason why Starmer is reluctant to do this is because it would force him to confront his appalling record of defending the very kind of people that the UK Terrorism Act is designed to prosecute and punish. For example, in 2008, he represented Abu Qatada al-Filastini, who was a hate preacher, Jordanian hate preacher, known by many, including in a UN report, as a spiritual ambassador to Osama bin Laden. This was an individual that Keir Starmer argued would be entitled to receive state benefits from the UK. His arguments were dismissed by the presiding judge at the time as completely fallacious. Starmer surrounds himself, at the very least in the legal sense, with people who are precisely like this and who share those same values. The Attorney General, Lord Hermer, has an even more appalling track record. He has represented Rangzib Ahmed, I believe, which was widely described as one of the leaders of Al-Qaeda in the UK, and actually their most prominent operative. And under Section 117 of the Terrorism Act 2000, it's only the Attorney General who can consent to prosecutions for terrorist acts committed for a purpose that is wholly or partly connected to the affairs of another country, which would be the case of the IRGC should it be designated or prescribed as a terrorist organization. So even on the issue of prescription, Starmer might believe that until he has a reason to dismiss Hermer, which has not materialized at any point currently, then he's simply not going to win in the prescription game. It's very zero-sum. Prosecutions would have to be consented to by an individual who has no interest in consenting to them, and he likely wouldn't get any work done. That might be his argument. It's a very defeatist one if it is, and it's angering a lot of the British people here, myself included.
Absolutely, a very disappointing reaction from the UK, as well as some of the other European leaders, even though they have at least taken the basic step of prescribing the IRGC a terrorist organization. Now, I want to turn, not only to the UK, but Iran is also lashing out in every direction. We've seen it also at the Arab states in the Gulf. And we heard earlier from Dr. Mordechai Kedar, an expert on the Middle East, what the rationale is here. But I do want to hear from you, your thoughts on this move. I mean, why create more opposition to this regime?
Well, from the eyes of the regime, it isn't creating more opposition to the regime. It believes that it is creating unfavorable conditions for those who oppose it. By bombing strategic locations, which also includes for the regime civilian areas, it's important to understand that for foreign terrorist regimes, civilian areas are considered strategically valuable targets. It's normal for them to bomb these civilian areas, including Dubai, including Manama, including Riyadh, and also Saudi oil fields, in an effort to get the Gulf to back off on any support for an American and Israeli campaign against the IRGC. Now, the lash out also comes from a position of desperation. They've lost their supreme leader, the Iranians. They also now have an interim leadership council that is led by three of the old guard politicians, one of whom is Ayatollah Alireza Arafi, who is not an unknown quantity. He's been photographed in 2022 with Pope Francis. In 2019, he called for death to Israel and death through America, which is not an unusual sight, unfortunately, among many of these clerics. But he is joined by Masoud Pezeshkian, who is the incumbent president of Iran until said otherwise. And then also, I believe, one of the individuals in the judiciary, senior official, Gholam Hossein. So these are three very dangerous people, but they are three very dangerous people in competition. And that is going to create a leadership challenge. And right now, the regime is trying to reassert or give the perception of having reasserted its regional authority whilst it sorts out its domestic affairs. Much of all of this bombing campaign that it has done in retaliation is a mass distraction while the regime gets its affairs in order.
Absolutely. Aurel, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing this unique perspective on what is happening with the United Kingdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And moving on, Israel is under attack, and now is the time to stand strong together. Iran's assaults are not only against Israel, but against the democratic values we share. In moments of challenge, strength is measured by action. The United States and Israel stand united, bound by freedom, security, and resilience. And Israel Bonds remains a vital bridge to the Jewish state. Every investment sends a bold, unmistakable message of support. Now is the time to act. You can invest in Israel Bonds at israelbonds.com or by using the QR code on your screen. And joining us now with more on the latest as we wrap up this live broadcast is our very own ILTV's Kalev Ben David. Kalev, can you hear us? All right, well, we don't seem to have Kalev, but we do seem to have our editor-in-chief, Steve Leibovitz. Steve, wonderful to have you on as we wrap up this live broadcast. Oh, we have Kalev and Steve, both of you together.
Both of us, yeah.
I'm so lucky to have you both. How wonderful.
100 years of experience in the room.
Right. That's about 70-30. Let's put it.
So, day 3 of this war,
Yeah.
we've covered so much today, and of course, over the past 3 days. It's really an historic moment, and of course, tonight is the eve of Purim. So, how apt that we are in this really struggle. Existential struggle for Israel and, of course, for the Islamic regime. Kalev, let's start with you. I'd like to hear your thoughts, your assessment on
Well,
day
first-
3 of this war.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. First of all, some really fascinating breaking news. The government of Qatar, with Qatar being the closest ally and supporter of Iran in the region, now said it has broken off relations with Iran following Iranian attacks on Qatar, Doha, the U.S. base there now. So as Qatar says, its air defense system has now shot down 2 Russian-made Sukhoi bombers that were being used by Iran to try to bomb Qatar. So imagine that. Qatar is now in a pitched battle, part of the pitched battle with Iran. This is something unprecedented. I don't think people anticipated this going into the war. And day 3 of this war really finds more of the action, at least the Iranian counterattack, shifted to the Gulf. They are trying to jack up the price of oil and gas. And in fact, Qatar, for example, said for temporarily suspending its shipment of natural gas because of Iranian attacks on its gas facilities. And the price of oil and crude oil and natural gas is starting to rise. So Iran shifting its focus, really, it seems, the brunt of its attacks onto the Gulf, trying to force add political pressure on President Trump. Should also say, in the U.S., President Trump, who was notably silent the first couple of the days of the war, is now speaking out. He's giving a number of interviews. He spoke with the Fox channel. He had a long conversation. He had a conversation with Jake Tapper of CNN and the New York Post. Just the fact that President Trump is speaking out shows you that he has some confidence in how the war is going. He said his initial timeline would last 3 or 4 weeks, but it's moving quicker than expected, saying 49 Iranian leaders have been knocked out. He seems fully committed still to the war. He did not even, speaking to the Jerusalem Post, he says he does not even rule out U.S. boots on the ground in Iran if that should be necessary. So President Trump, and he also said Iran has a big surprise coming. The biggest wave is coming onto Iran. So President Trump
major development if that were to be the case. American boots on the ground. That is a major development.
I don't say it's going to happen, and I still think it's unlikely. But the fact that President Trump even felt confident enough to even talk about that shows you that he is. Even though it's still an unpopular war in the U.S., we have to say, but some good things have broken the way of the U.S. Only there are 4 casualties that we know of, but that's it. Over 3 days of fighting, and President Trump at least seems confident at this point, and really everything depends on him and his confidence in this conflict. So we're going to see how, of course, how it develops. Noticeably fewer rockets, I would say, launch strikes against Israel today. It does appear that instead Iran's focusing on the Gulf, but things do seem to be moving quickly. And you discussed, of course, the developments with Lebanon, the attacks by Hezbollah and Israel, but most importantly, the Lebanese government now demanding that Hezbollah lay down its weapons and saying it would take action. So we're starting to see the region shift in significant ways here.
Kalev, so many updates from you in such a short time. Steve, I want to turn to you to talk about some of what Kalev just said and hear your thoughts on it as well. I want to start by addressing what you said initially, Kalev, which is Qatar and their announcement that they're cutting diplomatic relations with Iran. Now, call me maybe cynical. It seems like Qatar was quietly waiting to see how this develops, and sort of seems as though now it's just jumping ship as it realizes that the Islamic Republic, the Islamic regime, is on its way down. I mean, what do you think? What do you make of Qatar's statement and of Qatar's involvement in this operation?
Two things. One, as I said before, they see how quickly things have turned. That the war, militarily, in terms of the attack on Iran, that Israel and the U.S. has been successful. But more than that, the willingness of Iran to strike out at its neighbors in the Gulf, not just countries like the UAE and Bahrain that it's had tense relations with, but even countries like Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar itself. And I think that has taken those countries by shock. I agree with you. We could be cynical about Qatar, that suddenly it's shifted. But that really is one of I would say, the big surprise of this war. A lot of the things that have happened, we expected to happen. We did not expect Iran to react in this way. And that has really changed, starting to change things there in the Gulf.
And Steve, turning over to you, I mean, what do you make of Qatar's announcement?
First, let me go back to what Kalev said before about Trump's comment, because it was a really interesting comment he made to the New York Post about boots on the ground. He actually said as follows: I don't have yipes, Y-I-P-S, about U.S. boots on the ground, but probably don't need them. That's what he told the New York Post, and then he went on and said, like every president says, there will be no boots on the ground. I don't say it. I probably won't need them. If they were necessary, I'll use them. So that's the Trump comment. I don't think that there's a plan necessarily to have troops on the ground. Could that be an element in this war? I would say that we're in untested ground. So it remains to be seen. Qatar, the government of Qatar are snakes. They are two-faced. They want to appear as though they are an ally of the United States. They give gifts to the U.S. president. They want to make it seem as though they're on their side when ideologically they're on the Iranian side. They've been supporters of Iran. And I would not be, I'm not surprised at all to see them trying to avoid themselves being targeted rather than on the side that looks like it has the upper hand militarily.
And Steve, I do want to ask you as well, we're day 3 into this war. I think just yesterday or 2 days ago, we were I was sitting in this studio, you were sitting there, and we were talking about how there were very few missile hits, very few casualties when compared to the June war, the June confrontation with Iran. And now 3 days later, we're starting to see the death toll rise. We're starting to see the Israeli home front taking hits. I want to ask you, how's the mood? What are you hearing from your contacts here in Israel? Who are now we've started to see sort of the price of this war here in Israel. I mean, can you maybe comment on that for our viewers?
First of all, let me say happy Purim to you and especially your kids. I don't know what they're dressing up as, but it's a different Purim than we were all expecting. That certainly goes into the mood. Today, in order to both buy bagels and also in order to see Purim in action, I walked into the an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood very close to where I live. I saw kids dressed up, but it was certainly not, even in those neighborhoods, it was not a normal Purim atmosphere or Erev Purim atmosphere. Of course, in Jerusalem, it starts a day later, so we may see some of that even more tomorrow. But it's an interesting year, and I think everyone is turning into their families. Everyone is keeping a close watch on where are their kids today. I had family member. I have a friend that had a shiva for his father. He couldn't go to the funeral in the United States and had to have it here, but his friends are really unwilling right now to even, make the drive across country to his home because of, getting stuck on the way with rockets. So I don't know. Kalev was speaking before about how, the focus of the Iranians is the Gulf. It could be that the focus will come back to us very quickly. They've certainly not forgotten about us. They've targeted us a number of times. I don't know how many times I've been in the shelter with my dogs today. but it's been several. So I'm expecting several more weeks of these kind of tensions. I don't see the Iranian regime folding. I don't see them going for a quick ceasefire right now. I see them lashing out. And I see part of that lashing out is they're looking for a long conflict rather than a short conflict. I don't know how the markets have played out today. I didn't check that, Kalev.
Now, the markets are down I would just say the markets are down 1%. That is the strategy of the Iranians. I think they're looking at the stock market. They're looking at the price of oil and gas. They want to try to damage the global economy in general, the U.S. economy specifically in any ways. And for that, yes, they're going to need a war of attrition. And of course, that may change the strategy of the U.S. Perhaps then also in terms of intensifying their attacks, especially against the leadership. You know, it's been now reported that there was this, and several of the analysts you have spoken with, Ladar, have discussed this division of labor where Israel was given the responsibility mainly of targeting the leadership due to probably Israel's intelligence capabilities, keeping eyes on Iran for years, while the U.S. has been focusing on the air defense systems and ballistic missile sites and production. But the U.S. may also now be, looking to go after the remaining leadership, using those bunker buster bombs that only the U.S. can drop in their B-2 bombers. So I agree with Steve. Could be President Trump himself said it. He said 3-4 weeks. But you never know. You just don't know, because we've already seen some surprises here in this war, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see some surprises down the road here.
He said we haven't
Absolutely.
even started hitting them hard. The big wave hasn't even happened. This was Trump today. The big one is coming soon, whatever that means.
Well, there are sure to be a lot more surprises in store. And, Israel remaining on extremely high alert. I was speaking today with several security sources, both on camera and off camera. One tells me an expert on Iran's missile program says that the Iranians, despite all the bombing, despite everything, still have thousands of missiles in their stockpile. So there's certainly more days of intense warfare ahead. Kalev Ben-David, Steve Leibovitz, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to wish you a happy Purim, even under the circumstances, and stay safe.
And to you, Lidor, and all our viewers.
And now we want to turn to ILTV's Mayan Hoffman, who is outside in Jerusalem, I believe, at the supermarket. Mayan, what's the latest as we wrap up this live broadcast?
So thanks, Lidar. So first of all, I just want to piggyback on your economic question and let you know that the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange closed today, the strongest since 2020, actually our best day since COVID. So things are looking good economically in Israel. People are feeling that Israel is doing a good job with Iran. So here in Jerusalem, I am at the supermarket, which seems to be the only populated area in Jerusalem. I wanted to go out and try to find you people that were not in their bomb shelters, but the coffee shops are closed and most people are not on the streets. I did want to bring you maybe some guests though that could describe for you what it's like here. That be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear from some Israelis.
All right, so this is Michal. Michal, you live here in Jerusalem?
Yes.
Wonderful. So Michal, tell ILTV a little bit about what the mood has been like for you and your family since these attacks started really early Saturday morning.
Okay. I think the first strike was surprising because although we were ready, we didn't think Israel would be the one to strike first. And at first everything was very tense, but I think Israel is very adjusted to the situations. So day by day, we get used to this routine, which is unfortunately not very rare in Israel. And we're trying to make and to celebrate food in spite of everything, and to make sure the kids stay happy.
So tell me a little bit about the tension. I mean, we have gone up and down from those bomb shelters. So you have a safe room in your home, or do you need to go to one underground?
So we don't have a safe room in our house. So we have a shelter that is joined by all the neighbors. And it's pretty challenging, especially at night when you need to, wake up the kids and to make sure to arrive on time so we won't be in any danger. And I keep thinking of all, there's 30% of the population who doesn't have any protection. And I hope by the next war, which hopefully will never be, there will be also, in good hands.
Wonderful. And now I want to ask your son to join us also. If you can come over, and we're just going to switch out and let me speak to you here. Stand over here. Remind me your name again. So my son, thanks so much. I felt like we wanted to talk to you a little bit about Purim. As you've been mentioning on ILTV, tonight Purim starts in most of the country. In Jerusalem, it's supposed to start tomorrow night, but effectively all of the Purim activities are canceled. So what are your plans for Purim?
It's very tough because all my plans is cancelled. Every student in the school dressed up with costumes and the dance. It's very fun, but now we don't have anything because the Iran should actually have us.
Right, so you won't be able to wear your costumes already. Costume day came and went at school, and it didn't happen. Just tell me a little bit about how you'll be able to have some joy. What are your thoughts about maybe having an even more special term next year if all goes well this year with the war?
If all goes well, so next fall we can hear we celebrate and laugh about it. We laugh for you. That was like laugh about it. It was I said.
Thank you so much. And it is true that as we know that Purim is celebrated on these days, but it is also a celebration of Israel's victory over Persia, which is modern day Iran. So kind of ironic, but also really a cause that this year is victorious, will be, as Matan explains, even more celebratory.
Absolutely. What so lovely to hear from Michal, and especially from Natan. We've talked about this, Mayana. Tonight is, of course, Purim. Children really disappointed that they're not able to get dressed up, that they're not able to celebrate what is usually such a joyous time here in Israel. But I do think that, as we heard from Natan, I think most Israelis, including Israeli children, understand what's at stake. They understand the importance. They understand this existential war that Israel is fighting. And so, Mayan, I do want to also talk to you a little bit about the situation in terms of Israelis who are stranded abroad. We know that here inside of Israel, we hear from Natan and others, Israelis are showing remarkable resilience. They're adhering to the Home Front Command guidelines. We've been talking about that and updating about that all throughout the day. But we also know that there are, I think the estimate is about 100,000 Israelis who are stranded abroad. I mean, what can you tell us about that?
Flights, they're getting ready to launch those, I believe, even in the coming day or two, and to start bringing Israelis back. I think one of the most ironic things about Israelis is that you would think that when there's a war zone and rockets coming down, that you would be quite happy that you would be stranded abroad and not under rocket fire. But in fact, it's the opposite. Israelis try to get back. And as you said, there's about 100,000 who are stranded abroad. Those are people who maybe were on trips and had tickets that were planned already to return. So there's obviously more Israelis abroad, but these are the ones who actively were supposed to be back in the country, but can't get here because the skies are closed. But El Al is going to run those rescue flights. In addition, there are some Israelis that I've talked to that have taken interesting routes back, come through Jordan or Cairo, and then are working their way through various crossings. Those are usually people that have dual passports and, can go into those countries easily. But there are some Israelis doing that. If you remember the last Iran war, some people took boats. They went to Cyprus and took boats back to Israel. I'm starting to hear some rumblings that depending on how those rescue flights worked, we might see some Israelis coming in by boat as well.
Absolutely. Really ironic that Israelis, I think we've said this throughout, that they're the only people who try to fly back into a war zone. Mayan Hoffman, thank you so much for your report.
Thank you.
And so we are wrapping up what has been a very dramatic day 3 of the war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. war, Operation Roaring Lion, Operation Epic Fury. From what we know, according to the IDF, over 2,000 bombs dropped by the IDF against regime targets. The Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei taken out, eliminated, along with several other IRGC members. And of course, missiles, constant missile threat here in Israel and throughout the region. Day 3 of the war, still more dramatic days ahead. But for now, we are calling it a day. You can go get updates on our WhatsApp channel, breaking stories, live updates on our social media. That's a wrap for this special edition on the hour, but we'll continue updating live from Israel. I'm Lidar Lazi. Thank you so much for watching and keep safe.
When I went to Chicago, death threats. I mean, it was just really intense. We go back to Chicago. Hassan Piker's there. Hassan Piker made a video. I go to Hassan Piker's thing. I get kicked out. We go to my show. Like, it's dramatic. Then we sell all these tickets. I rent out a theater to show the film, and it's going to be a film within a film. Now, all of a sudden, they call us and say, we have to take your name off the marquee. We have to take your name. We have to refund all the tickets, and we had to find a new theater. So I said, you guys are crushed because we're documenting this right now.
Did the theater give you a reason why they were canceling you?
Because of security concerns. So we said, hey, we'll bring our own security. They said, we don't trust it.
Welcome to The Nosh here on ILTV with Kosha Dills over here. Kosha, thank you so much for joining me here in studio in Israel.
Yeah, here we are, man.
Here
The Nosh.
we are, The Nosh with Kosha Dills. Kosha, okay, let's just go right into it because there's so much to talk to you about. You have so much going on. But first of all, there are so many people who know you from MTV Wild and Out. How was that your experience being on Wild and Out? What you go through? And then I just got to find out a little bit about you as a Jew on Wild and Out, that experience as well.
Oh, well, Wild and Out's still on.
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
Yeah, just had a new episode come out last week. New season's out now. Check it out. VH1. I guess it's MTV and VH1 and BET. It's all those things in Viacom. So when I auditioned for Wild and Out, I was sort of like, all right, I'm like gonna be the, everyone sort of fits into a little category, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be the bald guy. And then I was like in a trying out, I'm like, all right, and then I'm like, man, I was gonna go with a hat. And then I was like, all right, let me put. They didn't really grab what Kosha Dills was because, mind you, we're recording in Georgia. A lot of people from the South. A lot of people aren't from New York. And believe it or not, guys, a lot of people aren't from New York.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean?
Well, people just don't understand the New York Jewish humor. And when I threw this yarmulke on, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be Kosha Dills. And they were like, oh, I get it now. And then I sort of like grew into this character a little bit more, being more Jewish on a show. And then ultimately, you just have to be great. You have to just be great. Rap, great jokes, and the show's a rapping show, so every show you're doing rap battles, and then you're doing comedy, and that was sort of my specialty, is like, the sleeper of the rap battles, and they have the best battle rappers in the world on the show, and it's driven me to do more comedy. I mean, the best people come from Wild and Out. Matt Rife, I did a show with him, Cat Williams, Kevin Hart, Pete Davidson came from there, and before, so it's really a start for a lot of famous people, and just getting to do shows with people that you would never, ever do something. And it's really a highly respected television show, one of the longest running shows on MTV ever.
Seriously?
And also one of the longest running black television shows, period, besides the Cosby Show. He's not in good social standing right now.
Let's not go there.
No. So, to be part of it is great. And also just being recognized in like that world and then the Jewish world, totally like two things. And learning how many Jewish people watch Wild and Out.
What, you didn't expect that?
Well, if you go watch if you go to a Wild and Out show, like we did the Barclay Center, and Rick Ross is performing, and it's like right before Yom Kippur, and it's all black crowd live. But I can't tell you how many people secretly watch Wild and Out as like a secret pleasure, and it'll be like some really, really, really from guy from like, I love you on Wild and Out. Or they'll say wild in out, just like you. You're like wilding out. Like it's not wilding, wilden. It's wilding out.
So let me ask you this: you put the yarmulke on. Comments, feedback. Anybody give you any issues with the yarmulke? Did you feel any anti-Semitism? Did you feel anything different?
No.
You got full respect.
And also I sort of embrace my Jewishness as like a stylistic thing. So whether I have like a necklace or I have on the back of my shirt, everyone has, you could get your name embroidered essentially. Like every show there's someone, just like, you come to a show, there's makeup. Every show there will be like, kosher deals on the back, and maybe you have, New Jersey or like, this place, that place. So I get to put a chai, and then I gave them a chai. So the back of my shirts for Wild and Out, the designs are always a chai.
Well, I do have to say, because you're talking about you could have whatever you want on your shirt. You do have some of the best swag. I don't know who designs it for you, where you come up from it, but you do have some of the best swag. I gotta give you credit on that.
Thank you. Merch is an amazing thing. So merch, listen, you could be way more popular than me. You could be way more popular than anybody, right? You could have 1 million followers, but if you have cool merch, someone with 1 million followers could think a person with 100 followers is cool. And that's what I always took when I was designing clothing. I was always into fashion, but not knowing much about fashion. I'll look at a popular sign like Dunkin' Donuts or White Castle, and then I'll be like, "What? How many letters is that?" Chris, can I change it to kosher deals? Can I change it to something funny and Jewish? And
very cute.
And like Schweppes, I made it Schleps, and like people love that because we live in a society, but people can't have a conversation, and you see something that provokes a conversation and provokes like an emotion. That's good merch. And
let's talk about those conversations, because also I know in the past few years you've been going to a lot of I'm not sure if you want to call them rallies or protests, whether they were Jewish, anti-Jewish,
social
experiments, or you having a social experiment.
Yeah.
You've been going to a lot of these rallies and engaging people, discussing, talking. Give me some of those experiences. Talk to me. First of all, what made you go do that?
So it was on October 7th, I wrote a song called Bring the Family Home. That was the first thing. I was playing a music festival. Someone was yelling, Free Palestine. And mind you, this person was always yelling Free Palestine. I was performing. And I was just, the whole day, I was just glued to my phone. And I don't post on Shabbat. And I was like, all right, I'm like looking at I couldn't stop looking. And so I scheduled a studio session. I made this song, Bring the Family Home. It comes out in about a week and a half later, and that's usually what I do. Is something bad happens, I make a song. I'm sort of like a reactionary artist, right? And a world event happens, I make the song. I performed this song at an event in Queens, probably, and my buddy Alan, shout out to Alan Schindelman, he's an amazing photographer, and he's like, yo, would you want to go make some videos? And somebody wants to go up to Colombia. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, let's do some photos. Let's just do some stuff.
You're not scared about going to the Lions then?
But this is like in a week. It's like 10 days into the war, And I decided to go. I was like, sure, let's go. And we shoot one interview. We go around, shoot another interview. People are putting up some posters. And this is I took some, hostage posters, put them up, and someone tried to rip it down right in front of me. And so we post this video, and it gets I chased a guy down, and it's like some Larry David music, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and then like the video gets like 500,000 views on TikTok. And I'm like, oh my God. And just like the week before, I did a video with this page called Channel 5, this dude, Andrew Callahan. And he knew me from rapping outside this event called Complex Con. He's like, we're going to go to a Palestine-Israel rally in L.A., and I helped him meet up with some rabbis, and because he'll jump on something right away, like right after Charlie Kirk got assassinated, he interviewed the last kid that was talking to him at the time. So he's really well known in like these sort of fringe independent journalism circles, and he knows me because I was rapping, and this woman walked off. She walked off a interview where I asked her about what's up with Gaza, Hamas. She's like, you're asking the wrong questions, and walked off the interview. And the entire comment section was, why did she walk off the interview? Like, wow, why would she do that? Why couldn't she answer the question? And that sort of sparked, it got 1 million views, and it sort of randomly sparked this entire new like man on the street content idea that we see repeated and repeated over again by so many different pages now. But at that time, no one was really doing that. And I was actually going to the protests, trying to do interviews with like television stations because they were interviewing all the. So I was like, let me be the opposing voice at the anti-Israel rally, because this is like 5 days. I mean, we haven't even at that point entered into Gaza. So it became like a fluke. Like I did the day we went to Columbia University, plus that interview. I did maybe 5 interviews. Randomly met a kid whose two family members were held hostage.
Oh, wow.
Maya Rega. This was randomly in the streets of New York. And what were the chances? He just walked up to us. And every one of those interviews just got over 1 million views. And I never did interviews before.
Nothing.
So, never. So it was a complete fluke, because my main thing was I ended up at that event with Alan because I performed a song, that people knew I made. And they're like, hey, do you want to, perform at this event? There was a Nova survivor there named Natalie who was from Long Island, and she had happened to be like already back in the U.S. speaking, and already like going. She was going to speak at certain places already where people were not really meeting any Nova survivors at this time, and that really sparked a series of interviews that I started doing interviews.
But a lot of these interviews, especially when you're at Columbia or other protests. Did you ever feel scared? Did you feel unsafe? You're going in and literally just wanting to have dialogue, conversation. You're not really even going in saying, something so controversial. You want to try and bring people together. And I know that's what you do a lot, but yet, how were you received?
Well, I kind of have like people will say my style of approach in interviews is like, hey, you're really chill. And
like right now,
yeah, the idea is I'm not going in there and being provocative. It's sort of, I guess some people will call it trolling, but if you said like the world was ending, I'd probably speak in the same tone. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, the world, So I'm going about to people, and me being less loud makes other people louder. Does it make sense? So some people would start freaking out, and I'm like, well, why are you freaking out? I don't know what else. And then they would just progressively like talk themselves into circles. And there's a classic interview that I went in. It was a Palestinian guy, and this was a random occurrence. And this guy ended up, becoming like very anti-Israel and doing a lot of provocative stuff. But I asked him, he's like, where are you from? And I said, my family's from Kiryat Tivon. And I was like, yeah. He's like, you don't sound like you're from here. I'm Palestinian. You sound like you're American. And the irony in the comment section is that guy sounds like he's not from there. So that sparked like, just by going out and having conversations, you were sort of unaware that there was a special power in going out to have conversation, because people are afraid to actually have conversation. But secretly, what people don't not know about me is that I've been going to like anti-Israel protests and Israel rallies since like 2007. Like I would love to go to, this is before social media kind of became a thing. And I remember in 2021 going live on Instagram at like an anti-Israel rally sort of by Grand Central Station, and noticing that like 60 people had come into Instagram Live, and Instagram Live, I would get like 5 people. So I realized that this was a thing that people wanted to see, and on TikTok, and that these little clips that people were, it seems very scary, but once you're there and you say hi to everyone, but what we don't realize for people that are scared of going to these events is that people there are having a great time there, just like we have a great time at the Israel parade on Fifth Avenue. So we're living in two different realities.
Different. It might be a parallel world.
Yeah, but if we are living in two different realities, it definitely is a little bit different, because that reality is based on saying that we're the bad guy when we're going and we're saying we're celebrating our life, and they're saying that we're responsible for all their death. So, but it becomes like a community, right? And there's different communities. So if you start saying hi to people, I would just go start saying hi to people, and next thing you know, everyone's like waving to me, and they had, you know, blue and white flags with swastikas on them, and you're like hi, with the whole families and everything. And I'm like, okay, this is just what this is, and here I am here, and I'm going in it. And in certain places,
when you say it is what it is, do you feel that they don't have the facts? Do you feel there's underlying racism, hatred? This can't be normal to come out against a people, a country, you know, in a moral society where we were brought up with no actual, what we would consider facts, you know, and truths, when people could, you know, have difference of opinions. They could support different things, but based on facts and truths. Here, what I'm hearing, what you're getting is more hatred than actual reality.
Right. And you, going back to the person that that said, you sound like you're American to me, and it's such a funny thing. He goes, I don't want to hear your pig Latin. He's like, my family's from Bethlehem, and everyone's like, Beit Lechem is a Hebrew word. He's like, so the entire comment section destroyed this guy, and I didn't even really have to do anything. I'm just like being myself. And my thing is, there are many other people that come there with, hey, I know all the facts and I know all this. And what I'm sort of trying to do is that you actually, if you really believe inherently that the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian entire movement is what it is, you don't need to know all the facts, because if there's literally hate brewing with people, they're going to hate you whether you know facts or no facts. They're going to hate you whether Benjamin Netanyahu is the prime minister or the Meretz party is prime. They're just going to hate you. So if I'm going in there and I'm like, hey, what's up? And they're like, how could you not condemn the deaths of 300? I'm like, I feel bad. You know, like I feel, well, what do you want me to say? I feel bad. And they're like, well, that's not good enough. Well, I'm like, well, if it's not good enough, ask the person next to you if they feel bad, because they do. And then people seem confused that I seem so comfortable there, and it sort of angers people. And then I feel like what became really popular about these videos was like me asking simple questions like, where should the Jews go to? Should they just go back to Yemen and get, they're like, yeah, they should go back to Yemen. And I'm like, okay. And maybe in another video, and you see other content creators, they would be like, well, this is the, like, you know, in a sort of confrontational way. My stuff is sort of like, as a person and like through what I've been through in my life, I realize that I'm not going to change somebody. And I feel like the only way to change people is through public, being held accountable by the public, which is, I think, more important to people who are doing things for clout than not.
But it's your disposition is what you're saying also. You're calm, cool, collective, and that's just how you stay on once that, you know, once you go live, once you start recording. It just seems to be, this is who you are, whether the camera's on or the camera's off.
Exactly. I could perform in front of 20,000 people and literally improv. And I've done that, you know, at Barclays Center with Wild 'N Out, and going to, you know, an interview where a bunch of people are surrounding you and being like this in your face. Like, I'm sort of like, okay, I'm either going to get attacked or everyone just going to, you know, try to make a video of me. And I know that I come through personal experience. My family is Israeli. I know that people have said, well, did you steal your house? And I'm like, no, my grandfather built it. Okay. Well, what about it? And I'm like, no, my mother said that, you know, during the 6-Day War, people were pointing at her house saying they were going to take her house when they won the war. Like, these are my personal experiences, so I could stand on it. If someone told me, hey, someone took my house in 1948, then I would take them for the word. I'll say, okay, that's it really sucks to be you. And I have friends like that in different, and that's what I kind of go through the authenticity of my personal experience, because no matter how many facts that you have, or if you know who the founder of Zionism was, who you know, did this to your specific house in Ramla, or the difference between Ramla and Ramallah, which is like a good that's a good test. If someone, if you
Yes,
say
people
Ramla,
have-
and people don't know that Ramla exists, and people will say, "Oh, Ramallah," you mean, like, I'm like, all right, I already know how much you know based on the fact that you don't know those little minute differences, the little things, right? Like
Which you're already
Easters and Western, yeah.
You're already saying they know which river and which sea then, because you're
Yeah,
going
and
even
that's
deep
like
into the
the
minutia.
classic. That was like the one thing, the which river, which sea, I never used because I was just like, you know, I didn't necessarily have to, as because I wasn't really trying to purposely confuse people. I would just have conversations with them, and people would say, well, I'm an anti-Zionist Jew. And I'm like, well, you didn't actually have to tell me that for me to know that when we're here. You
It's
know,
common sense if
yeah,
you're
I
here.
guess if you're here, like, obviously you want to have the conversation with me. And then what I guess the main point of me was doing it was that, and I had a discussion with, I don't know if I'm like we're veering off any question, but recently, as time went on, I really didn't like these short form interviews because I didn't feel they were accomplishing much, which is why I have a movie coming out, which is really
I wanted to go into that next because of all your content that you got. I want to speak about that and what happened to you.
I interviewed a girl who was president of Columbia University, and I asked her, you know, there's multiple colleges there, and she's Israeli, and she did service, and, you know, a really sharp girl. And I asked her, I said, what makes kids change on college campuses? And the only thing that makes you change on college campus specifically, or anyone in the protest movement, is that they are held accountable for what they do, which is in the public trial of embarrassment and being embarrassed on YouTube or Instagram and having 3 million, going viral and looking like an idiot, right? And that's
getting made into a meme.
And that is yeah, exactly. And what I realized is that people would get doxxed or canceled, and then they would change their mind because they realize that they don't know something and they shouldn't go out there and spread propaganda because they were held accountable for their actions. Mind you, that same thing is done for people who commit, like, I'm a former convict, you know, from when I've been sober over 20 years. I made mistakes when I was younger, in the same age of college, and now I still pay the consequences for it when you go and enter into places and people see your record. And now this is like the new public record. This is like the new way of being arrested. It's like if someone goes on there and says, you know, what did my, you know, John David is his name, and they look and they're like, oh, this guy went to protest and said, you know, oh, you know, Charlie Kirk's death was great. You know, this person, long live the Intifada. They're like, you know what? Yeah, we're not gonna. You know, thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
you know
they're making
and
databases now with people who commented about Charlie Kirk.
Not only do they have to say, all right, listen, not only did I make a mistake, but this is obviously now I can't get a job. Now I have to go back. Now I have to actually Now I have to go and volunteer and clear that up. And now I have to make content that's positive toward Jewry. And that's the only way. But she told me this as a president of Columbia University. This is the only way people learn, because if they're not held accountable for their actions, then that's it. Yeah, exactly. So for me, when I would go to these protests, I was like, you know, I'm making these videos and people love it. And it was sort of like Bring the Family Home series. And it started this new thing. And this is what people wanted to see.
So
and
I do have to say, I
it.
love the song Bring the Family Home. It really speaks to my heart. But with all the content that you have recorded and what you're doing, talk to me a little bit about this movie that you're making. And I know that you had some issues trying to premiere it as well.
Yes. So, okay, in short, the movie is called Bring the Family Home, but it's very much sort of about bringing Rami home. So in 2024, during the college encampment era, I think we had different eras, right? We was talking about the poster era, the poster ripping era, which is like in early 2023 to 2024. And I said, you know, the college encampments are coming. I went on a film like this. Hey, you know, speaking to the camera, I want to come to your university. Let me know and I'll come for free, pay, whatever you guys want. So I went to UPenn, NYU, FIT, Columbia, DePaul University, Northwestern, you know, Berkeley, Chapman. I mean, I went to schools all over, right? I went to upstate New York, and I basically made, I performed inside an encampment at one of them. Like I just started bringing, and then they all surrounded me. So then the kids started wanting to bring me to their college campuses to like stick up for them. It was this interesting thing. They were booking me like a week out. I just did it off social media. So
wow.
I decided to bring my boy Matt. I was like, listen, we're going to make a film called Bring the Family, and we're just going to document the whole tour. And then we went to Paris, the Olympics, and we documented all the anti-Semitism at the Olympics. And what I realized is people were going through such chaos at their universities, and each school was different, right? And I'm going there respectfully, doing specific things, performing for the kids. Some kids were like, don't taunt the other students because, we have a lot of issues on campus. Other places were like, let's go over and perform and taunt them. Yeah. And I was like, whatever, man. We're like making a film. Like, this is what we're doing. And this is what's happening to me. Like, people want me to perform the Watermelon song, Bring the Family Home. They want me to perform Ceasefire. I have so much music about it. 1 year later, I showed the film. We had a 60-minute film. Someone says, let's go either make it shorter. The guy was at my first protest that I went to with Andrew from Channel 5. He goes, make it shorter or make it longer. And this guy, I think he won an Oscar. Like, he's a sharp dude, had a documentary on Netflix. If he didn't win an Oscar, he was nominated. And I'm like, wow, let me go back and we'll show the film in Chicago, which the crazy stuff happened in Chicago. I met Hirsch's cousin, Jeremiah, who's black. And this showed really like, oh, not all Jews are, it was really interesting because people don't know like who this guy Hirsch is. And he drove a truck around college campuses every single day and still does with pictures of the hostages in Chicago. And it's not like big public news. And Chicago made Columbia University look like a playground.
And we didn't even hear much about that opposed to what's going on in NYU or Columbia.
Yes, because it's just like in New York is like the center of news, but there's tons of stuff happening in Chicago. Now, when I went to Chicago, death threats, I mean, it was just really intense. We go back to Chicago. Hassan Piker's there. Hassan Piker made a video. I go to Hassan Piker's thing. I get kicked out. We go to my show. Like, it's dramatic. Then we sell all these tickets. I rent out a theater to show the film, and it's going to be a film within a film. Now, all of a sudden, they call us and say, we have to take your name off the marquee. We have to take your name. We have to refund all the tickets, and we had to find a new theater. So I said, you guys are crushed because we're documenting this right now.
Did the theater give you a reason why they were canceling you?
Because of security concerns. So we said, hey, we'll bring our own security. I said, we don't trust it. And they say that, we're going to lose all support. So basically what people are saying is if you make enough threats about a Jewish event, Jewish artist, whether it's Matisyahu or the Road Between Us, the film that just won in Toronto, right? Same exact thing. You're going to get 100 calls, and they're going to say, if you let that Jewish artist come with the Israel film, Bring the Family Home or whatever, we're going to destroy your building. We're going to egg it. We're all pulling our support. We're not donating to your anything. And these people are not people that are even in your community. Some are, but some aren't. So what now happens is that we were documenting the film within the film. So now in the final film, now it's a 90-minute film, which we extended it. You'll see everything. And what this film told us, and this is the first place I was ever going to show a film. Listen, I've been doing music 20 years. Now I have a film, right? They said, hey, we're going to put your name next to, what's the movie that, No Other Land. And I'm like, yo, this is perfect. No Other Land can't distribution. I can't get distribution. We should have our films. It should exist together, even though we disagree. And so now in my film, I also watch No Other Land. And there's